Okay, so I think we are good to start today. The recording is started, so those who are not joining, can refer the recording later as well. Good, so we'll start first. So, as all of you knows, this is a KMP course. So KMP stands for Kotlin Multiplatforms, and we want to learn how all these multi-platform things works. Like all of you are Android developers, right? How many of you are into iOS development as well? Can you just raise your hand? I just want to see. किसी ने किया है iOS development? Anyone? नहीं, right? So the first things I'll tell you is again, some of you already knows because you are past learners. We'll try to keep the things as interactive as possible. So it's not like कि मैं यहाँ पर से continue. I'll be speaking and you will be just listening. You know, it's we'll try to keep it interactive. So मेरी आवाज आ रही है, right? Can anyone just confirm this?
Yes.
ठीक है, cool.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I assume कि no one is into iOS development, at least from you folks, and all of you are familiar with Android and Compose both. ठीक है, so what we gonna do is we gonna start with very straight from the very basics and then we'll move on. So what I'm doing is I'm sharing my screen. Just give me a thumbs up. Microsoft Teams would like to share your screen. ठीक है. Just give me a second. And I need to leave the call because I need to close the Teams. I'll just reopen. Give me a second. Okay. I had to leave due to system permission. So okay, yes, I'm sharing my screen. Give me a thumbs up. It's visible. Just a thumbs up would be fine. It's visible, right? नो कहीं से thumbs up नहीं आ रहा, दिख नहीं रही क्या स्क्रीन? अच्छा, ओके, ठीक है, cool. Okay, so we're gonna start from the very basic introductions of the Kotlin multi-platform, what it is, what does it mean, how the project is structured, and what are the basic things we get started. Okay, so we're gonna start with this. So let's start from the very basic. So earlier, we are using the Kotlin was initially meant to build the Android applications, right? We are using the Kotlin to build the Android applications. It has almost replaced the Java for the Android development. And this new thing Compose is making, it's taking market by the storm. So Kotlin team at the JetBrains decided, okay, the language is getting popular and the people has shown so much of interest. So let's do something like let's make it available for the multi-platform as well. At that point of time, earlier, I mean, some of you are those who are very senior developers, like who have 8 or 10 years of experience can recognize that there was earlier, in the early days, there was this things Cordova and Ionic. इसका नाम किसी को पता है? Ionic फ्रेमवर्क था पहले इन द वेरी अर्ली डेज, फ्लटर के भी दिनों के पहले, है ना? का कुछ लोगों को पता होगा, है ना? तो the Ionic was the things. It was kind of first, not actual first, but kind of the prominent in the market for multi-platform development. So the whole concept of the multi-platform revolves around you just write code single times and it runs on a multiple platform. For example, we have multiple platforms like Android, iOS, desktop, and web. Each have its own pros and cons and completely unique landscape, right? जो वेब में चलेगा वो डेस्कटॉप में नहीं चलेगा. डेस्कटॉप के कंसेप्ट कंप्लीटली डिफरेंट हो गए कंपेयर टू मोबाइल. तो द पीपल वेयर फ्रॉम द अर्ली डेज थिंकिंग कि ऐसा कोई सोल्यूशन है क्या? इज देयर एनी सॉल्यूशंस यूजिंग विच we can write a code only once and then we can run it on a multiple platforms. So this team at the Ionic framework came up with a solution. So they created a JavaScript based view तो खैर बाद में आया था, but they created JavaScript based multi-platform development, and it was famous but it had a whole lot of issues, its own issues. तो वो इतना इतना ज्यादा टेक ऑफ नहीं कर पाया. ठीक है. उसके बाद अराउंड आई गेस 14 एंड 15 बोथ ऑफ दिस रिएक्ट फेसबुक ने निकाला रिएक्ट जेएस. ठीक है. तो रिएक्ट जेएस वाज रिवोल्यूशनरी. इट काइंड्स ऑफ इट कंटेन वर्चुअल डॉम्स एंड ऑल दोस थिंग्स दैट इज ओनली फॉर द जेएस. Now based on the JS, React JS, they created something known as React Native. So React Native was a very popular multi-platform development. You just write code once and it was able to run on a whole lot of devices, mobile, Android, iOS, browser, as well as the PCs. Okay, Mac and Windows both. So Facebook team came up with these things. Their core idea was you write the code in the JavaScript. Again, the name React JS means React JavaScript, right? You write the code in the JavaScript, and internally whole lot of things will happen, and then finally your single code will be able to run on multiple platforms. So this was kinds of revolutionary, and at the same time, this guy was making the waves as well. गूगल थॉट की ठीक है अपने कंपटीटर्स बना रहे हैं तो अपन भी कुछ बना देते हैं, तो they created a Flutter. Okay, and they created a Flutter for cross platform development as well. The RN, I'll use the RN for React Native. RN use the JS. So similarly, Flutter used something known as a Dart. Dart is a programming language created by Google. So all of these things you see, Darts and Javas and Kotlin, so all of them, looks almost similar. It's nothing much different. So they created this Dart language, and on top of it, they created this Flutter uh, framework. Okay, so Flutter was very popular in the market, and it is currently popular in the market as well. So Flutter really gives you nice things about the multi-platform डेवलपमेंट. काफी सारी एप्लीकेशंस जो आज प्रोमिनेंट है वो फ्लटर में बनी हुई है, जैसे कि फॉर एग्जांपल द गूगल पे. आई गेस ऑलमोस्ट ऑल ऑफ यू यूज, राइट? इफ यू आर अ फोन पे लवर देन जस्ट फॉरगिव मी, बट गूगल पे अगर यूज करते हो तो दैट इज बिल्ट इनटू द फ्लटर, both Android and iOS. And you see the Google Pay is very popular application, right? It handles a whole lot of users and still it's a smooth. सो उससे क्या प्रूव होता है कि फ्लटर इज ऑल्सो अ रियली गुड सोल्यूशन फॉर मल्टी प्लेटफॉर्म डेवलपमेंट. ठीक है, तो ये दोनों काफी मार्केट में चल रहे थे. नाउ उनका देख के जेबी ने सोचा कि व्हाई नॉट अस, अपन भी तो कर सकते हैं. मतलब जावा हैज इट्स ओन लिमिटेशंस. कोटलिन तो मॉडर्न लैंग्वेज थी, उनका मॉडर्न कंपाइलर्स एंड ऑल चीज था, तो दे थॉट कि ठीक है, लेट्स मेक सम चेंजेस, थोड़े बहुत चेंज करते हैं, अपन भी अपना कुछ मल्टी प्लेटफॉर्म लेके आते हैं. ठीक है. तो व्हाट दे डिड इज इन द अर्ली डेज they created these things called KMP, Kotlin Multiplatform. Okay, I'll just clarify a few theoretical concept as well ताकि कोई confusion ना रहे. So they came up with, I guess 3 or 4 years ago, they came up with a KMP, Kotlin Multiplatform. ठीक है. तो Kotlin Multiplatform was targeted for any, you just write a single Kotlin code, and then it will run on a multiple platform. तो उसके उन लोगों ने दो सबसेट बनाए, KMP and KMM. KMM stand for Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile. So it was a subset of the KMP that was designed or that was targeted specifically for mobile devices, that is Android and iOS. जब ये लॉन्च हुआ तब ये किस गोल के साथ लॉन्च हुआ था, ये फ्लटर्स एंड आरएन्स वो सब है, वो किस गोल के साथ लॉन्च हुए थे. सी एवरीवन इज एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड हिंदी एज वेल, राइट? व्हाटएवर आई एम स्पीकिंग, नो वन इज रेज द कंसर्न, तो आई अज्यूम कि ओके. तो फ्लटर और रिएक्ट नेटिव जो गोल के साथ लॉन्च हुए थे, दैट वाज कि hey, you just have a single framework and you do everything with us. ठीक है, यूआई हो गया, लॉजिक हो गया, एंड एवरीथिंग यू जस्ट राइट इनटू सिंगल एप्लीकेशन एंड एवरीथिंग विल वर्क. So it had its own issues because, of course, some things that you built on top of something cannot gives you the same performance at the original one. For example, अगर मैं बोलूँ कि आप एंड्रॉइड इम्यूलेटर देखो, एंड्रॉइड डिवाइस एंड एक्चुअल फिजिकल डिवाइस देखो, तो फिजिकल डिवाइस का परफॉर्मेंस विल बी very very better than emulator, because what emulator is doing, it is trying to run the android into a virtual machine rather than dedicated hardware. ठीक है, तो किसी चीज के ऊपर बनाए तो उसका परफॉर्मेंस नेटिव जैसा नहीं आएगा. सिमिलरली फ्लटर्स एंड रिएक्ट नेटिव आर एन दोनों दे वेर बिल्ट ऑन समथिंग ऑन टॉप ऑफ द नेटिव, उनका परफॉर्मेंस भी नेटिव जैसे नहीं था. तो केएमपी वालों ने जो चीज, मतलब जेबी ने क्या सोचा कि अपन कुछ अलग ही करते हैं, अपन को सब नहीं देना है. व्हाट वी विल डू इज वी विल डिवाइड द एप्लीकेशंस और सॉफ्टवेयर व्हाटएवर इनटू टू पार्ट्स. एक तो हो गया आपका यूआई, दैट इज वेयर यूजर इंटरेक्ट्स विद, एंड दूसरा हो गया आपका लॉजिक. ओके, देयर इज दिस थिंग्स कॉल्ड यूआई एंड देयर इज दिस थिंग्स कॉल्ड बिजनेस लॉजिक. तो हर एक सॉफ्टवेयर में यही होता है, राइट? एक यूआई होता है, एक बिजनेस लॉजिक होता है. तो जेबी से कि वी गोना टारगेट स्पेसिफिकली दिस वन, नॉट दिस वन. इसका नहीं करना है, क्योंकि यूआई आप नेटिव यूज करो तभी आपको अच्छा फील आएगा, उस इसलिए उसको अपन टारगेट नहीं करते. वी गोना जस्ट टारगेट द बिजनेस लॉजिक लेयर. तो व्हाट वी गोना डू, आई मीन व्हाट द जेबी टोल्ड अस कि द केएमपी इज सपोज get this one, that is a your business logic. Okay, your UI can be independent. मतलब एंड्रॉइड के लिए आप एक्सएमएल यूज कर लो, या तो कंपोज यूज कर लो, iOS के लिए स्विफ्ट यूआई यूज कर लो, डेक्शन बना रहे हो मान लो तो स्विंग यूज कर लो, या तो जावा एफएक्स यूज कर लो, वेब के लिए बना रहे हो तो जेएस यूज कर लो. तो what you want to do use for the UI or the user facing part is up to you. हमें उससे कोई लेना देना नहीं है. What we care about is business logic. You can write a single Kotlin code that allows you to share the business logic. बाकी आपको UI में प्रेफरेंस जो भी है आपका आपके प्लेटफॉर्म पे उसको यूज कर लो. This is what they promised. ठीक है. So this was the thing. Now what happened is this was the things. फिर उससे हुआ क्या, ये सारा सिनेरियो था ना. उससे हुआ क्या कि the KMP when it was in the early days, it was a total trash. Total trash मतलब कुछ नहीं चल रहा था. Of course हर किसी के साथ यही होता है. जब फ्लटर भी आया इन अर्ली डेज में तो इट वाज अ टोटल ट्रैश. तो उसका मेमोरी मैनेजमेंट एकदम बुरी तरह से खराब था, एंड अब एप्लीकेशंस क्रैश होती थी, काफी सारा बॉयलर प्लेट लिखना पड़ता था, एंड होल लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स वेयर देयर. ठीक है, सेटअप में ही लोगों के 2-2 3-3 दिन चले जाते थे. दिस इज समथिंग आई हैव सीन. तो केएमपी वाज काइंड्स ऑफ अर्ली डेज में तो ट्रेश ही होता है. फिर दूसरा कंफ्यूजन ये हुआ कि पीपल वेर कंफ्यूज, लाइक व्हाट द हेल इज केएमपी एंड व्हाट इज केएमएम. मतलब मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ, केएमएम कर रहा हूँ, केएमपी कर रहा हूँ, और क्या क्या नया आता है तो मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ. ठीक है, तो टू अवॉइड दिस कंफ्यूजन व्हाट दे डिड इज, जेबी ने बोला कि इसको गोली मारो. ठीक है, कि वी गोना नॉट यूज दिस थिंग्स कॉल्ड केएमएम. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि मोबाइल स्पेसिफिक कुछ अलग बना रहे हैं, नहीं. ठीक है, छोड़ो उसको. फ्रॉम नाउ ऑन अपना एक ही टारगेट रहेगा, दैट इज केएमपी फॉर ऑल द टेक्नोलॉजी, बी इट अ मोबाइल रिलेटेड, डेस्कटॉप रिलेटेड, वेब रिलेटेड, सब केएमपी ही बोला जाएगा. दैट इज कोटलिन मल्टीप्लेटफॉर्म. तो ये पिक्चर से हट गया. ठीक है, बचा क्या, केएमपी. ठीक है, तो दिस वाज द थिंग. इसको हटा देते हैं. नाउ नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस कि उस टाइम पे गूगल ने, मतलब द कंपोज वाज वेरी पॉपुलर फ्रेमवर्क. ओके, जेटपैक कंपोज वाज वेरी वेरी पॉपुलर फ्रेमवर्क. तो कंपोज ने मार्केट में आके तहलका मचा दिया, एंड द मेनी ऑफ द एंड्रॉइड डेवलपर्स अडेप्टेड. कितने लोग डे टू डे लाइफ में कंपोज यूज करते हैं इन योर एप्लीकेशंस, कंपनी लेवल एप्लीकेशंस और व्हाट? परवेश शेख, आई कैन सी, धीरज गुप्ता, अमर पाटिल, मयूर, विनीत. तो 5-6 लोग तो करते ही है. वेरी नाइस, गुड टू सी. ठीक है, तो द कंपोज केम, एंड कंपोज shook द मार्केट कि काफी अच्छा फ्रेमवर्क है, एंड इट्स रियली नाइस थिंग्स. तो एंड्रॉइड में तो अच्छा खासा चल ही रहा था. नाउ द थिंग्स अबाउट कंपोज इज, ठीक है, I'll ask you one questions. ये जो जितने लोग हैं उसको एक क्वेश्चंस पूछता हूँ मैं कि what do you mean by jetpack compose? What is it? Can anyone just raise your hand and tell me what is jetpack compose? Right, wrong, nothing, anything, just raise your hand, man. मतलब जो लोग एटलीस्ट काम करते हैं डेली लाइफ में उनको तो आइडिया ही होगा कि व्हाट इज जेटपैक कंपोज. मयूर, यस प्लीज.
Yeah, so it's I think a declarative way of creating UI. Like earlier we used to show the UI based on conditions, like what to show and what to hide. But with Compose, it is backed by data. Like uh, we decide based on the data, like what will you show. I think that the word used is a declarative way of showing UI. I'm not able to like phrase it correctly, maybe, but yeah, I think this is the
हाँ हाँ,
basic
that's
idea.
fine, that's fine. That's fine. Cool. Thanks. Yeah, it's what Google says, right? Cool. Next, किसने रेज किया था? धीरज गुप्ता, yes please.
Actually, I have also the same answer, but yeah, one more thing I would like to add that we write the UI in the same language. Like earlier, we used to use XML, and now we are writing
Hmm.
Kotlin in Kotlin only, the UI part as well.
Hmm. Okay. So earlier we used to write the UI in XML. Now we write in a Kotlin using Compose. So that is essentially UI toolkit. Cool. Okay. Next one is Amar. Yes, Amar.
Yeah, just one add-on. Actually, UI will be changed based on the states. Means we don't need to pass any things.
Sorry, you were not clear. You were able to your last line.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are now.
Yeah, UI will be changed based on the states that will be happen in the compose.
Hmm. Hmm. ठीक है, cool. Nice, cool, awesome. Yeah, all of these things were right, and the Google said ki it's a declarative UI framework, which is again right, and we write Kotlin to build it. Awesome, that's right. Now I'll tell you one thing. Is if the Compose is UI framework, if the Compose is UI framework, then you won't be able to use it on a multi-platform, because if it's tied to Android and if it's related to Android UI, you cannot simply use the UI into Android, right? I mean, you cannot use the Android UI into iOS or a desktop or web. तो the very essential things I teach in जो मेरे Android क्लास में थे उनको तो पता ही होगा, उनको भी मैं बोलता ही हूँ हर बार कि the Jetpack Compose itself has nothing to do with the UI. Okay, I'll tell you why. इसके ऊपर मेरा एक YouTube पे टॉक भी है, कंपोज इन अ व्यू मॉडल. तो अगर इफ एनीवन इज इंटरेस्टेड तो यू कैन जस्ट I'll share the link later. So what exactly is a compose? तो compose is at its core, compose का जो core part है, that is a runtime and compiler. At the core of it, it's a tree of a nodes. Okay, what compose is? It's a tree of a node. तो essentially मैं अगर compose UI बनाता हूँ तो I'll write something like this. I have a column, I can have a text, and I can have, let's say, button. Okay, something like this. तो डेटा स्ट्रक्चर अपन पढ़े हैं, तो डेटा स्ट्रक्चर का कोर्स तो वैसे मैं भी ले नहीं रहा, तो यू आर सेफ फ्रॉम दैट साइड. बट you know the tree DB, right? Sorry, DS. तो ट्री इज अ डेटा स्ट्रक्चर. तो कंपोज का जो कोर है, दैट इज कंपोज रन टाइम. ये देखा होगा आप लोगों ने. देन अनदर पार्ट इज कंपोज कंपाइलर. तो ये जो कोर है दैट डील्स विद अ ट्री ऑफ अ नोड. तो ये ट्री ऑफ नोड है, वो कुछ भी हो सकता है. वो आपका लॉजिक हो, आपका यूआई हो, इट कुड बी योर यूआई, इट कुड बी योर लॉजिक, इट कुड बी एनीथिंग. तो एसेंशियली कंपोज run core is a mechanism to handle the tree of a nodes. तो अभी देखो इससे होता क्या है. ट्री ऑफ नोड से ये कॉलम, टेक्स्ट एंड बटन किसके हैं? एंड्रॉइड दैट इज व्हाट वी नो राइट एंड्रॉइड के। iOS में देखो, मान लो यू आर बिल्डिंग iOS ऐप, एग्जांपल something like this. What the hell is happening man? Typically you see ये एक बॉटम नेविगेशन है राइट, उसके अंदर 4 आइकन्स, ठीक है। तो बॉटम नेविगेशन मान लो, बॉटम ने फॉर एग्जांपल उसके अंदर हो गए 4 आइकन, यू कैन हैव 1 2 3 4 icons, something like this. So even these things can be represented as a tree of nodes, right? So that means compose can be used. Okay, ये भी ट्री ऑफ नोड्स है, तो कंपोज का जो कोर पार्ट है गूगल वालों ने अच्छा खासा बनाया है, वो भी यहाँ पर यूज हो सकता है। सेम वेब में ले लो, वेब में भी कोई यूआई ले लो, तो यूआई कैन बी रिप्रेजेंटेड एज ए ट्री ऑफ नोड्स। तो इसी चीज की वजह से इट अट्रैक्टेड किसका, जेबी का ध्यान उसने खींचा कि दिस थिंग्स इज रियली स्पेशल। तो जेबी वालों ने क्या सोचा कि गूगल ने बनाया है एंड्रॉइड के लिए, गूगल के साथ काम करके इसको थोड़ा और एक्सटेंसिबल बनाते हैं, ठीक है। तो व्हाट दे डिड इज दे क्रिएटेड CMP और कंपोज मल्टी प्लेटफॉर्म। ये क्या है, एसेंशियली इसका भी कोर यही है, इसका जो कोर है दैट इज दिस वन, कोर तो यही है, बट उन्होंने हर एक प्लेटफॉर्म के जो यूआईस होते हैं उसको ट्री ऑफ नोड में रिप्रेजेंट कर दिया ताकि कंपोज कैन डील विथ इट, ठीक है। एसेंशियली अपन ने पता लगा लिया कि कंपोज कैन डील विथ ट्री ऑफ नोड्स, नाउ इट कुड बी एनी प्लेटफॉर्म यूआई। तो ऑन टॉप ऑफ इट इस लोगों ने बनाया कंपोज मल्टी प्लेटफॉर्म दैट इज CMP। तो ये डील है KMP और CMP के बीच में। नाउ पहले तो जेबी वाज क्लेमिंग कि ठीक है वी आर ओनली डीलिंग विथ बिजनेस लॉजिक, दैट इज व्हाट KMP मींस। अभी CMP भी बना दिया तो यूआई लेयर भी कवर हो गया, इवन द यूआई लेयर इज कवर्ड एज वेल। तो अभी you don't need to write UI separately for each of the platform. What you can do is you can simply use the CMP, that is Compose Multi-Platform, to build UI for Android, iOS, web and desktop everything. But ये दोनों एक दूसरे के साथ मतलब these are you know काउंटर पार्ट काइंड ऑफ थिंग्स। ऐसा नहीं है कि KMP के साथ CMP यूज करना ही करना है, नहीं। अगर आपको प्लेटफॉर्म स्पेसिफिक UI यूज करना है तो वो करो, CMP यूज करके भी एडिशनली प्लेटफॉर्म स्पेसिफिक यूज करना है वो भी करो, प्योर CMP यूज करना है वो भी करो, मतलब जो भी आपको करना है करो। तो दिस इज द KMP ट्रेंड में क्यों है, क्योंकि KMP कम्स विथ अ लॉट ऑफ फ्लेक्सिबिलिटीज। तो इट गिव्स यू एज अ डेवलपर ऑप्शन कि भाई आपको जो भी करना है करो। फ्लटर में ऐसा नहीं है, फ्लटर आपने बनाई तो मतलब आप यू कैन सिंपली गो फ्रीली एंड देन यू कैन यूज व्हाटएवर यू वांट, तो उसमें लिमिटेशंस। तो KMP का फंडा ये है, ये तो हमारा है ही है कि हम दे रहे हैं, आपको यूज करना है तो करो, नहीं करना है तो नहीं करो। बट सिंस द CMP इज अवेलेबल, तो स्पेशली न्यू एप्लीकेशंस में, एग्जिस्टिंग में तो खैर ये अपना UI होगा, तो एग्जिस्टिंग एप्लीकेशन वाले क्या करेंगे, बिजनेस लॉजिक KMP में लिखेंगे, UI विल बी इनटू देयर ओन फ्रेमवर्क एंड दिस इज हाउ इट वर्क्स। अगर आप न्यू एप्लीकेशन स्क्रैच से लिख रहे हो तो द बेस्ट कॉम्बो इज KMP प्लस CMP, कंपोज मल्टी प्लेटफॉर्म प्लस कोटलिन मल्टी प्लेटफॉर्म। तो दिस इज हाउ ऑल द थिंग्स सिट्स विद ईच अदर, ठीक है। ये आधा घंटा मैंने भाषण दिया, ऑल गुड, ऑल क्लियर, एनी क्वेश्चंस, एनी कंसर्न, समझ में आ गया ना सबको?
Yes.
ओके कूल, ठीक है। तो ये थी अपनी बैक स्टोरी। यस, समवन वांट्स टू आस्क, रमर, यस।
Hi Rajesh, I am beginner for the Hindi, so could you please continue in English?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sorry, man.
Thank you, Rajesh. It's okay.
Cool. So this is how, yeah, you can lower down the hand. Thank you. So this is how the things, and this is how the KMP was born. So let's go some theoretical part. Anyone else has questions? No, Ramar, I think you can lower the hand. Yes. Cool. Shamani आ गया क्या? कौन है भाई? Okay, cool. ठीक है, तो the Kotlin Multiplatform is a modern framework that allows sharing business logic across iOS, Android, web, and desktop while maintaining near native performance. The important light is a near native. You cannot get native performance using multi-platform solution. Kotlin, Flutter, React Native, Ionic, whatever. Nobody is a code. You cannot get native level performance. You can still get near native performance, but not 100% with the native. ठीक है तो इसीलिए लिखा है the core philosophy is share what you want, keep what you need. Okay, so you can share whatever you want. If you only want to share the business logic and keep the US. Is there any kinds of a murmuring voice? Are you getting or it's clear? Because I'm facing that things is
Sometime is really get stuck and maybe sometime noisy, but right now it's okay.
okay. Cool, awesome. Okay. So yeah, if you want to just share the business logic and keep the UI separate, you can do it. If you share everything, you can do that as well. So this is the core philosophy of the KMP, that is share what you want, keep what you need. Okay. Unlike other framework, it does not force a shared UI. These are the key benefits: reduce development time and maintenance cost. Of course, if you have two developers, one building Android and one building iOS, the time it will take is twice as much as one guy building the both UI using both application using the KMP, right? It has a native near native performance and access to platform specific APIs as well. And which is required because if you want to access the camera on the iOS and access the camera on the Android, that will be different APIs, right? So your platform should provide access to platform specific API as well. Okay, the last things is a gradual adoption. You can start by sharing just a single module, and this is what many people actually does as well. For example, आप Jio Hotstar देखोगे ना, if you see the Jio Hotstar, I guess all of you have heard about these things. So what they did is they started sharing a single module in their design system into the KMP. So they have their design and token system. They have nice blog as well. I'll share if I can find GeoStar KMP article. Uh, not this one, GeoStar. Just give me a second. GeoStar, Kotlin, multi-platform, Medium, probably. That's correct. This is what they have built into KMP. So they have their design token systems. They have created into KMP. Only it's a single module, not everything of the Geo Hotstar. तो ऐसा कल जाके claim मत करना. Don't claim कि Hotstar is showing the World Cup match using the KMP. But yeah, this is how it is supposed to be in a all production application, right? Gradual migration. So they have created into the KMP, and KMP will distribute their uh, this library things into all other consumers, be it Android, iOS, whatever. So this is what we mean by gradual adoption. You just start with a single module and then you add more and more. काफी सारी कंपनीज KMP यूज करती है. Blinkit हो गया, Zomato यूज हो गया. Again, they are not 100% KMP. They have started the gradual migration. One company I know is Shadi.com. They are 100% into KMP. मेरा एक दोस्त ही है, मतलब कम्युनिटी में ही बंदा है. He works at Shadi.com. he मैनेज करता है, तो Shadi.com is 100% KMP. So yes, companies have started adopting the KMP. Now this is a bit of a comparison chat between KMP versus Flutter versus RN. So in terms of a performance, KMP has a near native performance. Flutter also has good performance. Flutter can be problematic if you are building a very complex applications and you don't have a large team. Again, if you have a large team, just like Google has a large team, so their GPA feels just like a native application, even though it's in a Flutter. So if you have a regular, I mean medium application, so I guess it's not like this is a KMP course, so I will say bad things about the others. Flutter is a really good thing. People use the Flutter. It's a promising. It's just that you have to take a call what you want to build, what you have to choose. Flutter is a really good things as well. Again, React Native many people are using, but I believe Flutter is more popular than RM. Okay, on the UI part, KMP can be 100% native, as we mentioned. If you want to share the UI, do it. Otherwise, build natively into your platform. Flutter it's a custom. You have to use a Dart widgets. Flutter has something called a widget. Okay, so you have to build a widgets into Dart. And React Native has, you write into JS and that gets converted to native components. In terms of the KMP, the learning curve is a bit high. Why I'm saying this? It's really getting improving day by day. The Kotlin team is really working hard. But today, if you take a time, अगर आप developer नहीं हो, like let's say you are not already into Kotlin, you will find Flutter easier to get started. Just get started than KMP, because the KMP has a whole lot of things to set the things, stitch the things with each other. So if you are not into Kotlin, you might feel Flutter easy to get started. Yes, this is the things with the currently, and Kotlin team is really working nice, because if you see the 1 year back, it was even complex to get started with the KMP. Nowadays it's really easy. काफी easy कर दिया है, we'll see. The Flutter is a medium and the RN is a medium as well. So the things is how all the now the questions is how all these things works. Like how the KMP works, how the Flutter works, how the ReactNative works, what is the difference, and those kinds of things. So if we talk about the KMP, so you start with a shared Kotlin code. There is this things called a common main. We'll see these things. So Android main, common main, iOS main. What is this? We'll see. So there is a shared Kotlin code, common main, platform specific code, that is Android main and iOS main. Again, that is written in a Kotlin. So consider this as an interface, this as an implementation. Then the compilation will happen for the Android. Kotlin JVM will be used and JVM bytecode will be generated. I mean, a Dalvik bytecode will be generated, but let's keep it simple and say JVM. For the iOS, Kotlin, इसके लिए थोड़ा I'll probably need to tell you how the Kotlin compiler works. Okay. So
Rajesh,
yes, please.
sorry to interrupt. Actually, by any
Yeah,
chance you're
go
sharing your screen?
yes, it's stopped or what?
We are not able to see.
Yeah, it's visible.
No,
It's visible. It's visible.
Maybe.
Okay, I was not able to see actually.
Okay, I have reshared it, so you should be
Yeah,
able
now
to see.
I'm able to see. Now I'm able to see.
Cool. Cool. Okay. So now the things is let's understand a compiler a bit. So earlier the Kotlin compiler was a Kotlin compiler, nothing else, right? It was a compiler. So this is how it worked. Now the good folks at the JB thoughts ki, it's okay, the design is fine and it's working for Android and everything. But this is not our goal. Kotlin is not specific to Android, or it's not just specific to one platform. We want to target it for the multi-platform. So what we need to do, we need to see when you want to add a multi-platform support. This is a huge task, and you have to start from very scratch. That is from the compiler level thing. So what they divided compiler into two parts: compiler front end and back end. So there is this things called compiler front end. I'll tell you, compiler front end and compiler backend. Okay, the compiler front end and compiler backend. Now, what these things does is, let's say you are building for, let's keep it simple and let's just target 2-3 platform. You are building for, let's say, Android and desktop and web. Let's do something like this. Okay. So you are building things for this. Okay, there is this things called compiler front end, compiler back end. तो फ्रंट एंड क्या करेगा? लेट्स से एंड्रॉइड का एंड्रॉइड डेस्कटॉप एंड वेब, all of these things needs to be compiled with the Kotlin. What it will do, it will convert all of these things into IR or intermediate representation. All of these things I have discussed as well into ये मेरा वीडियो देखा किसी ने, I don't know, जो DroidCon में मैंने दिया था on how to build some compiler plugins, अगर मिलता है तो शेयर कर देता हूँ. Yes. Write some of my code into your compilation process. I guess Vinit was there, ना Vinit?
नहीं मैं नहीं आया था.
अच्छा, okay. ठीक है, तो yeah, it was in Bangalore, and you know, this is I mentioned about the compiler things here. ठीक है, तो the compiler front end is there, so it converts this code. Let's say Android का Kotlin लिखा है, desktop का, web का जो भी लिखा, and then it converts into IR, that is intermediate representation. अभी ये जो एक्चुअल प्लेटफॉर्म्स है, एंड्रॉइड डेस्कटॉप एंड वेब, वो तो कोटलिन समझते नहीं है, राइट? एंड्रॉइड what language Kotlin Android understand is a deal with bytecode, right? Something like this. डेस्कटॉप चलता है नेटिव कोड पे, ठीक है, डेस्कटॉप वर्क्स ऑन नेटिव कोड, एंड वेब जो समझता है दैट इज योर JS. दे डोंट केयर अबाउट व्हाट द हेल इज Kotlin. तो Kotlin को भी इसको रिस्पेक्ट करना पड़ेगा. तो हर एक प्लेटफॉर्म के लिए देयर इज अ कंपाइलर बैकएंड. ये बैकएंड क्या करता है एंड्रॉइड का, इसको कन्वर्ट करता है टेलविक में, बाइट कोड में. ये जो डेस्कटॉप का बैकएंड है, दैट कन्वर्ट्स इनटू नेटिव कोड. नेटिव कोड में कन्वर्ट करने के लिए इट यूज समथिंग नोन एज अ LLVM. LLVM एक काफी अच्छा प्रोजेक्ट है. तो basically what it allows you to do is it allows you it use a language agnostic IR, intermediate representation, to enable advanced optimization, blah 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 whatnot. So basically it allows you to convert the code, simple language में it allows you to convert code into you know, the native thing kind of thing. तो Kotlin use LLVM. मैं शेयर कर देता हूँ अगर किसी को देखना है जाके. तो basically see, you don't need to know all these things, it's a very low level things, but it's just that ki I thought you should be informed, so that's why I'm sharing. बाकी ऐसा नहीं है कि KMP के साथ काम करना है. If you want to work with a KMP, तो you just go and see the LLVM core. No, it's not required at all. It's a very low level thing. So Kotlin use LLVM for you know, native conversions, and similarly the compiler backends convert the Kotlin code into the applicable JS. ठीक है, तो compilations happens as you can see here. Even for the iOS it uses LLVM to convert into iOS native binaries. Then shared code is compiled into native binaries for example Android की बात करें तो Android में you know, it gets converted into AAR, Android Archive, that is your library, right? And iOS, जैसे एंड्रॉइड में लाइब्रेरी का कंसेप्ट होता है ना, iOS में कंसेप्ट होता है फ्रेमवर्क का, दैट इज डॉट फ्रेमवर्क और डॉट एक्सी फ्रेमवर्क. तो iOS के लिए इट गेट कन्वर्टेड इनटू दिस. UI लेयर में एंड्रॉइड में इफ यू वांट टू यूज कंपोज, यू कैन यूज इट. यू कैन यूज स्विफ्ट UI फॉर iOS प्लस KMP इफ यू वांट. एंड रन टाइम में तो एंड्रॉइड रन टाइम है ही, एंड iOS का तो जो नेटिव रन टाइम है वो. दिस इज हाउ द KMP वर्क्स. Flutter में you have similar, the steps are similar. Dart application code, then there is a Flutter framework in itself. Compilations होता है JIT, that is just in time. ये JIT and AOT किसी को पता है? It's a JVM concepts. Can anyone tell me what is the JIT and AOT compilation?
Doc time, just in time.
Yeah, but what does it mean?
Yeah, code will be prepared before the run the applications.
Yep. Cool. So basically AOT and JIT is things coming from the JVM. So JIT थोड़ा थोड़ा घुस जाते हैं डीप में, क्योंकि सब डेवलप, everyone is a experience box, right? So AOT stands for ahead of time. JIT stands for just in time. JIT means the compilations will happen just in a time. That means you install the applications and compile will happen just in time when you are running, when you are starting it. Okay. AOT means the compilation will happen, full compilation, uh, not the code compilation, the symbols होते हैं आपके, उसका compilation happens ahead of the time, that is before you run the applications. इसका एक practical example देता हूँ. Many of you might have noted lollipop के time वाले कितने बंदे हैं? How many of you are from the lollipop era folks, Android 5? ऐसा कोई है क्या जो जिसने lollipop यूज नहीं किया, Android lollipop? No. ठीक है, तो all of you have used it. ठीक है. So one things you probably may have seen is जो pre lollipop things थी उसमें the pre lollipop things, that is a KitKat 4.4, उसमें the application installation was taking a small amount of time, and the running of the applications was taking a large amount of time. Okay, now starting with the lollipop, the installation was taking a bit large, not the large, but bit large amount of time, and the running was taking a small amount of time. Why? Because starting with the lollipop, Android implemented something known as a AOT, ahead of the time compilation. So what was happening when your applications was getting installed, the symbol compilation was happening, तो उसी के लिए आपका installation time ज्यादा लगता था lollipop के time पे. Some of you might have noticed it. Okay, and then since the code was pre-compiled, running के time पे it used to take a small amount of a time to just run the code, boot the application. So this was the real difference in the real world. तो AOT and DOT, तो इनमें से बेस्ट कौन सा है? The best is JIT plus AOT. Some of the JOT, some of the JIT and some of the AOT. तो इसका combination जो है, that is perform best in a real world. The code path that is much traversed. For example, in your activity you have some functions which is used multiple times. उसके लिए AOT use होता है. The code path that is less traveled, उसके लिए JIT use होता है. तो the current Android implementation use combination of both AOT and JIT. Okay, ये तो होगी compilation level की बात, but this is how it works. And then shared code है Flutter में भी, APK बनती है, native binaries बनती है. तो Flutters के जो widget होते हैं वो render होते हैं Skia से. Skia is there on rendering engine. Sorry, Skia is open source 2D graphics library. Open source 2D graphics library. तो Flutter अभी यूज नहीं कर रहा. I guess Flutter has Flutter rendering है. They are coming up with their own engine. उसका नाम कुछ तो भूल गया मैं. Impeller, yes. Impeller, now they ditched the Skia, and Impeller is a rendering engine. What is a rendering engine? Rendering engine means whatever the Flutter widget represented by code will be rendered in the as a UI components on a different platforms. Okay, for example, Android के लिए rendering अलग होगा, iOS के लिए there will be a different rendering, web के लिए there will be different rendering. So the rendering engine takes care of all of these things. कैसे buttons दिखाना है, कैसे checkbox दिखाने हैं, कैसे windows दिखानी है, तो all these things it is taken care by this low level engine called Impeller. तो ये Flutter का खुद का है. Now they no longer depends on the Skia. Okay, so they use these things. Similarly, for the RN, there is this JavaScript or TypeScript. TypeScript is a big brother to JavaScript. So essentially, TypeScript is a JavaScript with a type. JavaScript में type नहीं है, तो TypeScript allows the typed JavaScript. And then there is this RN framework. The compilation happens, interpretations, and they use this engine called a Hermes engine. Okay, जैसे Flutter का मैंने Impeller बोला, तो they use JS engine called Hermes engine. It's optimized for React Native. So basically it parse the JavaScript and it produce the results out of it. एक और famous JavaScript engine का नाम है V8. Okay, some of you might have heard it. It is powering the Chromium. Okay, अरे भाई ये cylinder engine नहीं. it's powering the Chromium and Node.js and whatnot. ओके तो ये गूगल ने क्रोम के लिए बनाया था बट ये नोड भी यही यूज करता है V8 engine. Okay, so just like V8, the React Native team has created a Hermes engine for their own use. मैं शेयर कर देता हूँ. ठीक है, तो they use these things and then the bundle JS converts into the bytecode and APK and iOS and native UI code and then finally these things. ठीक है, now coming on to the third things, that is okay, all clear up to this point? Any questions, any concern?
No.
All clear ना? ठीक है, सही डायरेक्शन में जा रहे हैं ना? We going into right direction.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure कि you folks are not. ठीक है, cool. So okay, let's move on. तो KMP versus CMP. KMP is again foundation, the best technology that enables sharing the pure Kotlin code, and CMP is a extension kinds of that allows you to build the multi-platform UI. And so KMP allows logic sharing while CMP allows UI itself. You can use CMP on top of the KMP, which is we already know. अपन ने देख लिया है. ठीक है, cool. Now on top of the sharing technology, sorry, what to share? I guess I'll keep this later. Let me just move on with the actual project. ठीक है, so now let's do one thing. Let's start with actual KMP project. Okay, let's start with and we'll discuss all these things later. So if you want to build a new project, just like let's say you open the Android Studio and you want to start a new project, Android project. So what you could do is you could use empty activity and this will start the Android project. Now how do you create a KMP project? Okay, so to create a KMP project, you can go to the KMP starter wizard page. Okay, that is kmp.jetbrains.com. I'm again sharing the link, and this will allows you to start with KMP project initialization. So what you can do, this is a new project, so you can create a project name. Let's say the project name is Kotlin project. Project ID is org.example.project. Now it allows you to decide which platforms you want to target. You want to target Android, you can select this. If you want to target the iOS, you can select this. If you want to target the desktop, you can select this. You can web, and then you can target the server as well. Okay. So iOS you see there are two options. If you want to use a Compose for the iOS development, you can select this one. If you don't want to use a Compose for iOS and you want to go for a Swift UI, then you can use do not share UI and use Swift UI. Let's just go with the default option. Okay. And if you want to include the initial test, you can click this. Okay. Let's keep it as it is now. And you can click on download. तो वो क्या करेगा, एक zip file download करेगा, and in that zip files, you will be able to see some of the things like build file है, compose app करके एक folder है, there is this io app करके एक folder है. तो we'll see these things later. So these things you can click on Android Studio and you can click on open, and you can just grab these things here into Android Studio. This is one thing you can do. Plus one more nice things they have created here is you can discover the KMP libraries from this. For example, अगर आपको database use करना है, तो what you can do, you can use the SQL Delight or Room, both. Okay, for the data store you can use the Room, you can use Getter for the networking. तो वो सारी libraries यहाँ पर mention करके रखी. Cool. This is one thing. Another thing is, it's really tedious job to just go onto this website just to create a project. So what you can do is, plus one more things. Even if you create these things, Android Studio will have a KMP support, right? Android Studio by default does not support the KMP. What do you need to do? You need to go to the plugins and you have to install Kotlin multi-platform plugin. You have to install this one, that is Kotlin multi-platform plugin. Okay, let me get the plugin homepage and let me share it with you folks so you can just go and have a look. Okay, you have to install this KMP plugin into the Android Studio itself as well. Basically, this allows you to write the KMP applications in the Android Studio, and it does a whole lot of things. So we'll see later. So you need these things, Kotlin multi-platform plugin. Once you have that installed, you can click on new projects, and now you will see the Kotlin multi-platform setup wizard here. So you don't need to go to this site. You can simply start from the studio as well. So let's click on next, and let's click on, let's call it a my KMP application. ठीक है, let's say package name is a com.hadiarajesh.mykmp application. Let's store it here. Android minimum SDK is 24, and build configuration is Kotlin DSL. Any one of you are using Kotlin DSL for the Gradle configuration, or you are still into the groovy thing? कोई use कर रहा है? Anyone is using the Kotlin DSL?
Yes, I use Kotlin.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. Cool. Cool.
Yeah.
So basically, for those who are not using these things, so your build file will be, Gradle build file will be written into Groovy. Groovy is again JVM language. So your build file would be look like build.gradle. Now, if you migrate that to Kotlin, it will convert into build.gradle.kts, and it's written into Kotlin. Okay. So this is some things we're gonna use. Okay, so let's use the Kotlin DSL and let's click on next. Since we're going to want to go all in all Kotlin, same चीज यहाँ पर जो दिख रही है, the things you see seeing here, you can see here as well. Android target करना है, iOS target करना है. If you want to share the UI again with a compose, do not share, use a Swift UI. So let's just go with a share UI. You can target a desktop if you want, web and UI implementation भी share करते थे, server नहीं करना, ठीक है? As of now, let's click on finish and let's see what it does. We'll explore the project, क्या structure है, what it contains, and all these things. ठीक है, so it's building. Let's wait for it, and I'm gonna show you these things. While it's building, I'll show you these things. So it is divided into multiple folders. One is a Compose app, one is a iOS app. Compose app may, if you expand it, there is these things called Android main, common main, uh, iOS main, JS main, JVM main, Wasm, WebAssembly main, and web main. तो काफी सारी चीजें है यहाँ पर, ठीक है? Now what does all of this means? मतलब करना क्या है, इसमें क्या चीज पड़ी है, कौन सी चीज पड़ी है? That is some things we want to see. Okay, that is some things we will see. What this folder means, कहाँ पर क्या चीज पड़ी है, किसको डेवलप कैसे करना है, तो this is something we want to see. तो मेरे ख्याल से it's been 1 hour. So what I usually do in my other courses is we take a short break of 10 minutes so you can get some refreshment and you don't get bored as well. So let's do the same things here, otherwise KMP ज्यादा ही over हो जाएगा. ठीक है, तो let's take a short break. 10 minutes में we'll be back. Don't leave the meeting, just stay here. I'll keep the screen sharing on, but I won't be speaking, and we will be back by sharp 10 p.m. Okay. Uh, yeah, so it's at 10 p.m. and I guess everyone is back. So we can continue, right? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So where were we on this part? Yes. What exactly this contains and all these things. So Android Studio by default switch to Android view, which is fine for Android, but not for multi-platform. Cool. Parvesh, you want to ask something?
Yeah, hi Rajesh. I'm not able to access this chat. Is it just me or everybody is not getting?
Yeah. So in order to access the chat, do you have Microsoft account?
No, I have joined via web browser.
Yeah, yes, yes. So what you have to do is you need to create a Microsoft account. Whether even if you can use your same Gmail to create a Microsoft account, and then you can log in into your account, so you should be able to access all the features of the things, including the chat.
Okay, okay, got it.
Okay, good. So it's there. ठीक है. Let's see. Okay. So let's switch to project and let's see what all these things contains. So if we go by the slides, there is this root directory. It contains a project-wide Gradle configuration, build.gradle and settings.gradle. As you can see, this is a project-wide build.gradle and this is settings.gradle. Yeah, so all of you knows these things, right? Now, project-wide, it applies the Android application plugin, Android library plugin, Compose hot reload plugin. We'll discuss these things later. And Compose multi-platform plugin, Compose compiler plugin, and Kotlin multi-platform plugin. This is essential. Okay, this is what identifies your application as a Kotlin multi-platform. And by the way, all of you are familiar with this version catalog, right? So essentially, this is a Gradle feature in case some of you don't know. So earlier, what we used to do is we used to do uh, something like this. We used to add a plugin by ID and then apply equal to false, right? Something like this. So this is considered the older versions of maintaining the dependency, including the plugins. And the Gradle has come up with a concept called Gradle version catalog. So in which inside your Gradle folder, there is this libs.versions.toml file, Tom's obvious markup language. You define the version. This was introduced especially to simplify the version management and dependency management in a multi-module project. It's not related to KMP. You can use it in Android as well. So in a versions block, you define the versions of all of the libraries that you are using in your Android. Sorry, in your project. In the libraries block, you define all of the libraries that you are using. For example, this is the library, and the version reference can refers to this. Essentially, it's a variable. Okay. For example, JUnit can refer to this variable version. So this is versions, this is libraries, and third is a plugin. So plugin you can define and then you can refer the version of that plugin. So it prevents a duplicate library dependency in a especially useful in a multi-module project. So this is how you refer a plugin using the version catalog. I hope all of you are familiar with it. कितने लोग ये यूज करते हैं अपने अपने प्रोजेक्ट्स में? Just I just want to see the count. Do we have anyone who used these things? We need Mayur, yes, cool. Nice. It's a really nice thing, man. Those who are not using, here as well, cool. Those who are not using, just go and have a look at it. Android version catalog. I'll just share it. So it's a really nice thing. It provides you the upgrade suggestions and whatnot. काफी अच्छी चीज है. You can just give it a try. I'll just share this. ठीक है, cool. So this is essentially Gradle version catalog. Okay, so these are the files. Now we can see two main folder. One is compose main, one is sorry, one is compose app, second is iOS app. ठीक है, iOS app है एक है compose. Mayur, do you have any questions?
No, I forgot to lower it down.
Okay, cool. I assume SM is required as well. Cool. So we can see two main folders here, compose app and iOS app. So we'll see what these things contains. So earlier, if you see the slide, what I have written is I written there is a shared module. The core multi-platform module where all shared code called common and platform specific implementation reside. Then there is this Android app folder. It's a regular Android application module that depends on the shared module, and iOS app is standard export project that embeds the shared module as a framework. So out of all these things, we are only able to see the iOS. So where are all these things shared and Android app? So the things is when the KMP was, uh, recently, as of now, up to very recently, the KMP was using this structure: shared module, Android app module, and iOS app module. Even if you just go and see their own documentation, KMP project structure, if you go and see their uh, uh, these things, so you will find shared module there. You see shared module, common main, JS main, iOS main. So shared module tha ek, there was a shared module, Android app and iOS app. I had one past KMP project. Uh, Even in that project, you can see I had shared module, right? So shared module and iOS app and Compose app. Compose app refers to this Android app. So shared module था which contains all the shared code. Now इस projects में वो नहीं दिख रहा है. We are not able to see these things here because in the very recent KMP configuration, the shared module is migrated into Compose app. If you use a Jetstack Compose to build the KMP project, your shared module will be migrated to Compose app module. Okay, तो ये ध्यान में रखना है. You need to keep these things in mind. So essentially the Compose app act as your shared module. मतलब उसके अंदर है, वो खुद नहीं है, उसके अंदर. Now there is this things called Android app. तो वो आपको दिख जाएगा यहाँ पर Android main. ठीक है, this Android main is your Android app module. यहाँ पर देख सकते हो आप Compose app module था, right, earlier, and उसके अंदर Android main था. So now essentially it's a part of a Compose app and there is this Android main. That is your Android app module. iOS app तो यहाँ पर दिख ही रहा है, which contains the iOS related code. Now shared के अंदर multiple things are there: common main, Android main, and iOS main. What is this? Shared, again, shared is this now. Common main, as you can see, Android main भी है यहाँ पर, which is again Android app and Android main is essentially now it's a same thing in a recent configuration. कॉमन मेन करके कॉमन टेस्ट है, iOS मेन है, JS मेन है, JVM मेन है, वाजम मेन है एंड वेब मेन. ठीक है, तो मेन लिखा है, राइट. वो क्या है as of now we don't know, we'll see later. So shared or common main is your cross platform Kotlin code. It can be business logics, networking, and whatnot. So this common main is a central configuration to your KMP project. Let me show it this way. तो आपका जो कॉमन मेन है, कॉमन मेन, ठीक है, and the main module is marked by the platform name. For example, iOS is a platform, तो iOS main. Android is a platform, तो Android main. JS is a platform, तो JS main. Wasm is a platform, तो Wasm JS main. Wasm मतलब web assembly. Okay, WASM. And common main is the core common code or the heart of the KMP. Okay, this is the heart of KMP. It's a heart of a KMP. It contains all the common code. It's your cross-platform Kotlin. Now, based on this common interface, so consider this as a interface kind of thing. कि आपका जो भी कॉमन कोड है सारे प्लेटफॉर्म्स के बीच में कॉमन रहेगा. लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल आई टेल यू वन थिंग. लेट्स से यू आर इम्प्लीमेंटिंग नेटवर्क रिक्वेस्ट फॉर एग्जांपल. तो नेटवर्क्स के जो सारे फंक्शंस है फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स से कि यू डिफाइन इंटरफेस समथिंग लाइक दिस इंटरफेस user API. You define something like this, and you define something like get users, and then what not. Basically, it's a simple things. Let's say, तो आपका जो common code है, that will define the functionality that is required. आपके जो platform wise main है, all the platform wise main. For example, let's say sorry, Android main. And another things is iOS main, right? iOS main. Now your common main will define what you want to achieve. Okay, like for example, I just want to have a API interface, and I want to get the users from the network. Abhi Android main is consider it as Android main will implement this, and iOS main will also implement this. Now to make a network request in the Android, you can use a retrofit or you can use OKHTTP to make a network call and get the users. On the iOS side, you can use Alamofire, right? ये actually it's a ये मान लो समझ लो iOS की retrofit है. It's Alamofire. So on the iOS side, you can make Alamofire, but essentially what you are doing, you are getting the list of a user. So consider this common main as the core contract of your shared code. Okay, and then the platform-wide main will provide the actual implementation of that. Okay, so this is how it works. Android main के अंदर उसका रहेगा, iOS main के अंदर जो भी implementation है वो उसका रहेगा. ठीक है, so this is how it works. And then there is this Android and iOS app. These are the platform shares that provides the entry point. ठीक है, तो again Android app is your Android main को ही अभी इन लोगों ने Android app बना दिया है, पहले अलग था. ठीक है, तो this is your Android entry point. You know, we need a manifest file, right? We need a resource folder. So this is how it looks. Now the entry point for the iOS is different because it cannot be clubbed with this. तो iOS के लिए देखो यहाँ पर एक एंट्री पॉइंट अलग से फोल्डर बनाया है, उसमें iOS app है, and then there is this things called iOS app.swift. This is your main activity. Okay, this is your main activity for the iOS. जैसे एंड्रॉइड में होती है मेन एक्टिविटी, यू लॉन्च इट, तो दिस इज योर मेन एक्टिविटी. ठीक है, ये हो गया आपका ऑल इन ऑल. इसको समझ लो मैनिफेस्ट फाइल. दिस info.pl is शॉर्ट फॉर्म, मतलब नॉट एग्जैक्टली बट सिमिलरली मैनी. ठीक है, एंड ये हो गया आपका एसेट्स इज योर रिसोर्स फोल्डर. ओके, तो कंफ्यूजन नहीं होना चाहिए. एसेट्स रिप्रेजेंट सॉर्ट ऑफ अ रिसोर्स फोल्डर इन एंड्रॉइड. So I'll try to explain the things from the Android perspective because all of you are Android developers, so it will be easier to understand. ठीक है, so these are assets are your resource. Okay, and these are the structure of the KMP project. Okay, now Android main में देख लेते हैं क्या है. एक तो Kotlin folder है, उसके अंदर main activity है, and main activity extend the component activity. On create is overridden, and then there is this app function is called. app कहाँ पर लिखा है इसको देखते हैं जाके. ये देखो app function लिखा है common main में, right? As I said, common main is your central point. So whatever you want to share, business logic or UI, the things that you want to share will be part of a common main. In this case, we are using a compose multi-platform CMP, and we want to share the UI as well. तो shared, in short इतना याद रखो कि जितनी भी चीजें shared है, all of the things that are shared will go into common main. So whether it's a business logic or UI will go here. This app UI is a shared, so it will go into common main. ठीक है, and then we are using material theme, and then simple a compose state is maintained, and we are showing a column and button है, उसके क्लिक पे show content को toggle कर रहे हैं. We are toggling the show content on a button click, and with animated visibility we are showing image, simple image. Okay, तो ये है compose multiplatform.xml. Again, these things also needs to be shared. So it's a shared resource. तो उसको बोलते हैं compose resource. Okay. ठीक है. So this is what common main contains. All these things we'll see. Okay, platform and all these things. Don't worry. But so main activity हो गई अपनी, app हो गई and greetings हो गई. And common test को भी रहने देते हैं. iOS main में there is this main view controller and platform iOS things is there. We'll see this expect actual things later. अभी के लिए रहने देते. JS में भी same is platform.js. Okay, and JVM main. JVM is your desktop. Okay, so there is this window and then there is this main platform. एक चीज you will notice is platform files is everywhere. So we'll see this actual funda later. तो वेब मेन भी है एंड सिमिलरली iOS में भी कुछ तो है, बाद में देखेंगे इसको. Now let's try to run these things and let's see what happens. So let's see if I see this. I have multiple targets. एक तो compose app है, that is my Android app. JS target is here, JVM target is here, Wasm target here, and iOS app is here. अगर मुझे Android app चलानी है तो I will use this compose app. What this will do? This will launch the app UI. तो सारी की सारी चीजें desktop, web, iOS, everyone will use this app because you see वो एंड्रॉइड में भी यूज हुआ है, iOS में भी यूज हुआ है, JVM में भी यूज हुआ है और वेब में भी हुआ है. सब जगह से एक ही चीज कॉल कर रहे हैं, राइट? तो nobody can blame me कि I am biased and ये तो अलग अलग UI यूज हो रहा है. सब जगह से एक ही UI कॉल हो रहा है. ठीक है, अब इसको रन करके देखते हैं what it contains. So I run compose app and so what it will do is it will build the project and it will run probably on my Pixel. Pixel 4 is definitely something I use for the daily life. ठीक है. So let it run. So this will show basically this compose UI. Let me run these things. Compose, and this will trigger the Android app launch. Okay, so as you can see, the app launch is done. What it is showing? It's showing a button called click me. One click of it, what will happen? Show content will toggle, and once the state is toggled, this animated visibility come into picture, and it is we are saying that it will show some image and it will show some text. Okay, तो एक click पे show करेगा, एक click पे hide करेगा. It's a toggled. So I click on it, and you see the compose का जो logo है, it is compose multi-platform resource. This one is shown, and hello compose के बाद लिखा है greetings में hello Android 29. So essentially the pixel is running API 29, right? So this is Android operating system and the version is 29. So it has printed Android 29. Awesome. तो ये हो गई अपनी Android app. अभी let's run the iOS app. Okay? So the good things about the KMP is and the Kotlin Multiplatform plugin is you can run the iOS app directly from the Android Studio. It's a really good thing. You can run the iOS apps directly from the Android Studio. But that does not mean that you will be able to run it on a Windows as well. In order to run the iOS app, you must have Mac. Okay, and I assume कि सबके पास Mac है, एक दो लोगों के पास नहीं है, तो उन लोगों ने पहले क्लियर कर दिया था. And they are fine with it. ठीक है, I assume all of you have Mac. But you can also run the iOS app from here. And ये सारी फंक्शनलिटी कहाँ से आ रही है? Because you see, Android Studio तो ये फंक्शनलिटी देता नहीं है. तो this things is coming from ये plugin, जैसे मैंने बोला ना, Kotlin Multiplatform. So this plugin is bringing this function. I don't want to run it onto my personal iPhone because I won't be able to, show it here. It's not connected. So I'm gonna use iPhone 17 Pro, that is emulator, iOS 26.2. Okay, I'll just run these things. So what will happen is Gradle will go and compile everything Kotlin. अभी now we know कि Gradle भले ही Kotlin का काम करता है, iOS does not recognize Gradle. एंड ग्रेडल iOS का बना भी नहीं सकता, राइट? तो व्हाट विल हैपन इज ग्रेडल अपना जो काम करना है, whatever the work Gradle needs to do, after it's done Gradle will hand it over to XC build. ओके, तो Xcode की जो बिल्ड सिस्टम है दैट इज XC build. Okay, it's a sort of Xcode build. हाँ, तो Xcode build. ओके, तो इन लोगों का नाम है, I'm just sharing it, not required at all but I'm just sharing it. तो Gradle will hand it over to Xcode build. It's a command line tool. तो जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको Xcode इंस्टॉल करना ही है. If you want to use the Xcode you can do it. Otherwise if you just have XC build, Xcode build, ये command line utility है, तो that is similar to your Gradle, है ना? Similarly कि you don't need Android Studio to run a Gradle, you can simply run via the CLI. Similarly Xcode build can be invoked via CLI. So Gradle will do its work and then hand it over to Xcode build, and you see my simulator is running and the compose code is running as well. If I click on click me, so let's see what it prints. Awesome, it printed the image and it printed the hello iOS 26.2. Now we can see it's truly running shared code, but it's still different, right? Because यहाँ पर दिख रहा था Android 29, यहाँ पर दिख रहा है hello iOS 26.2. So it is printing the actual platform that it is running. बाकी पूरा का पूरा कोड है shared. तो ये होगा iOS. The third things is JVM, that is your desktop. इसको भी रन करते हैं. Let's say let's run these things. Let's run it on a desktop via the JVM. तो जावा का भी लोगो आ जाएगा, देखो है ना? तो it's a desktop app, right? I click on click me and awesome, it's running a Java 21.0. Okay, JS भाई बचे हैं, उसको भी चला देते हैं. Let's use the compose JS. Let's run this and let's see what happens. JS browser development. ठीक है, it's taking a time. Probably due to JVM. ठीक है, okay, so it will run. Let's just move ahead for now. So essentially you can see your single compose application is running on multiple platform with a shared code. Android पे भी चल रहा है, iOS पे भी you can see it's working, and even on the desktop side it's working. So this is how you build your first KMP application. Okay, इसकी nitty-gritties में बाद में जाएंगे. We'll see the nitty-gritties of it, how कहाँ से आ रही है चीज, from where the things are coming and how it's working. But this is how your first KMP app runs. All clear? Any questions, any concern up to this point? Anyone wants to share anything or ask something, feel free to. Mayur, yes.
Yeah, so I assume that the project which we were looking at just now, this is a CMP plus KMP project as we selected the share UI
Yes.
option, right? So by
Yep.
chance, if you have any project which is only using KMP, uh, if there is any, like, can you show the difference in structure of the project?
So if you just want, let's say if you don't want to use these things, what to say, see, if you don't want to share the code. So as I mentioned, recently they have changed the structure. So let's say I created these things called KMP separate app. Okay, so this project use separate UI for iOS. Still, the compose app is still there. The
Okay.
only things is uh, let me share this. Okay, the only things is now the iOS application contain its own code. Okay, the code is written in a Swift UI. Earlier, see what is happening in the iOS app. If you see the iOS app, the content view देखोगे, so it is essentially calling the main nav controller, and the main nav
Okay.
controller is calling the app. The app is a shared code into that project. So that will go here.
Okay.
This is the different. And as I mentioned in the earlier versions, there was this shared thing. So in the shared things, you had a common main, you had an Android main, and you had an iOS main like this. And both of these apps were different. This is the Android app, that is Compose app, and this is the iOS app. So this was the structure earlier. Okay, I created a whole lot of things earlier, but this was the structure: separate Android app, separate iOS app, and separate shared module which contains common as well as the platform specific main modules. Nowadays, it's a only iOS app is different. Everything else is combined into Compose app module.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is how these things runs. Okay, this is how it goes. Any more questions from anyone's inside, or is it clear? Don't mind. Even if it's a small question, feel free to ask. ये कैसे होता है, ये कैसे होता है? Just feel free. हाँ मयूर, yes.
Yeah, sorry. One more question. Uh, the iOS emulators, emulator on which you run the iOS app, did you create it using Xcode, or like you can just, I think, run them from terminal, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes. So I'll show you that process of export
Okay.
thing right
Okay.
now.
Okay. Cool.
ठीक है, cool. Before that, any questions from anyone's side? No. समझ में आ रहा है ना कि ऊपर से तो नहीं जा रहा है ना कि ठीक है यार क्या पूछना अभी? ओके, तो ये ठीक है. I assume one of you are great developers. So let's just go ahead. Now, yeah, this is things. iOS app may I can see some of the emulators. So from where these things are coming? It's coming from the Xcode. And the another question is, what if you want to write the iOS code from the Xcode? You don't like Android Studio. So what you can do is just spin up the Xcode like this, and I'll close it. Yeah, just spin up the Xcode and open. What you need to do is you need to open this folder, that is iOS app itself, into the Xcode. Okay, so you go open the existing projects, and यहाँ पर जो compose app नहीं iOS app है इसको open करना है आपको. ठीक है, this is your iOS project, you just have to open. Now what happens is, I said you right कि how these things works internally is Gradle expose this code, this shared code, as a framework to the iOS application container. So what does it mean is ये है मान लो आपका iOS का iOS app, that is iOS app. Similar in case of Android, uh, and this is your Android app. So shared code, from where the shared code is coming. So the shared code, that is this one, shared code, will be published to Android as library, let's say AAR, and it will be published to iOS as framework. Okay, dot framework. Okay, dot taxi framework. So यहाँ पर भी आपको दिख रहा है कहाँ गया framework says. So ये जो shared code होता है वो as a framework expose होता है. तो iOS app will actually including our shared code. iOS app जैसे library include करते हैं ना अपन, ऐसे ही iOS app will include our shared code. तो ये मेरा प्रोजेक्ट खुल गया, ये कंटेंट व्यू है. कंटेंट व्यू कॉल्स द मेन व्यू कंट्रोलर. तो ये देखो यहाँ पर तो इसका कोड नहीं है. सी यहाँ पर I don't have interesting thing. I don't have compose app open into the Xcode. फिर भी ये कहीं पर तो नेविगेट कर रहा है, देखो इट्स नेविगेटिंग मी टू समवेयर, ठीक है, नेविगेटिंग मी टू समवेयर, कहां पर, ये जो मेरा कोड था ना, वो इसको एज अ लाइब्रेरी या इन अदर iOS टर्म्स इट्स एज अ फ्रेमवर्क एक्सपोज हुआ है, ठीक है, तो वो इसको एज अ फ्रेमवर्क एक्सपोज हुआ है, तो वो वहां से ये उठा रहा है, ठीक है, तो दिस इज हाउ द थिंग्स वर्क्स, ओके, तो ये यहाँ से आ रहा है। अभी Xcode में I can create a multiple emulators if I just want to create a new one. I can click on go to manage running destination. यहाँ पर you can add the simulators whatever you want, जो भी iOS आपको पसंद है, just add it. मेरे पास already है 17 Pro, तो I can just select 17 Pro and I can just click on run. तो ये सारा का सारा कोड तो उसको expose है ही, as I mentioned, I mean not this one but a common one. उसको एक्सपोज है, तो it will treat as a framework and it will just show it. Let's run it. Xcode से मैंने चलाया है, तो we should be able to see these things here. Let it. Awesome. So I can see it's running from the Xcode. I can click on click me and it's showing me the whole things. So this is how your first iOS application and Android application runs. In case you want to work with Xcode, you can do these things, this process. But believe me, I work on both and Android Studio and Xcode is literally trash. If you work with any JetBrains IDE, including the Android Studio, you will never like the Xcode. Okay, because the features the Android Studio provides is something out of the box and whole lot of nice things. So मैं तो personally Xcode जितना हो सके कम use करता हूँ. I try to use it as best as I can. Okay, but yeah, if you are iOS fanboy, development matlab, so you can use Xcode as well. Okay, otherwise you can simply run from the Android Studio as well. JVM runtime, okay, ठीक है. I'll just close this one and this one as well for the simplicity, and this one as well. ठीक है, तो it's yeah, it's okay, due to the system load, it was not starting. Now it started the Node.js downloading. So the Compose.js should run as well. एक ही बाकी था ना अब ना, that should run as well. Gradle build is running, it's downloading the node. Okay, well and good. Let it download. So this is how basically all the things works. Now we will go a bit into the details. We'll just see the Gradle things for today, and बाकी की जो expect actual चीजें हैं, that things we'll see tomorrow. Next session. And by the way, yes, Node.js download is in progress. Once it is done, we will be able to run the Compose on the web as well. So let's wait. It's downloading, blah 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 blah. Maybe it could take time. So थोड़ा वेट कर ही लेते हैं. Install something called module. It's taking your time. I guess let me just proceed ahead because I'll show you once it's done. It's taking the time. Okay, so let's move on to the Gradle part. So the basic things for the this KMP and the Gradle is, if you go and see the build file, ये वाली नहीं, Compose वाली build file, if you see, so you will see a lot of different things that you usually do not see in the Android build files. For example, this things is different, this JS is different. The source set is a different, and all of these things are, some of these things are there, right? Composed to desktop. तो ये सारी चीजें हैं. So what does it mean? Let's understand that thing which npm install is running. Okay. So the first thing is we need to include the multi-platform plugin. As I mentioned, it's a core to KMP. Android application plugins we also need because we are running the Android app inside this module. Compose multi-platform is also there because we are running the CMP. Compose compiler is also required to transform the composable into the UI. And hot reload is also added. This hot reload is something they have added recently. What it does is basically it see when you write the compose app and when you make some web में आप लोगों ने mostly देखा होगा when you make changes into code it automatically get reflected into UI, right? These things you might have seen especially on the web platforms. So the JB is bringing the same kinds of features into the compose called compose hot reload. Unfortunately, this is only applicable to desktop because due to some JVM restrictions, I can go into details, but to save some time and also, uh, it's not a part of these things, so I'm not going into details. And by the way, yes, our web is also running. See, click me, तो यहाँ पर compose दिख गया and hello Kotlin JS, तो ये भी चल गया. Similarly, Wasm भी चलेगा. तो चारों प्लेटफॉर्म्स जो होते हैं डेस्कटॉप, वेब, एंड्रॉइड एंड iOS वो अपन ने देख लिए चला के इट्स वर्किंग. And this is now we'll focus on the Gradle. So basically, yeah, we were talking about this iOS app. Okay, so in the iOS, we need to expose our shared code as a framework. So this is what it's doing for the iOS ARM64 frame architecture and simulator, both device and simulator. ARM64 is basically, architecture, right? We have Intel, sorry, this x86 and ARM64 architecture. Okay, it's a processor level architecture. तो नए जो डिवाइस होते हैं that is ARM64. तो इन दोनों के लिए what we are doing is iOS की जो बाइनरीज होती है उसमें एक Gradle एक फ्रेमवर्क बना के इंजेक्ट करेगा. ओके, फ्रेमवर्क का बेस नेम होगा कंपोज एंड इट्स अ स्टैटिक फ्रेमवर्क. व्हाट डज स्टैटिक मीन ये अभी जानने की जरूरत. तो the Gradle will inject this framework into the iOS binaries. Okay, तो इसीलिए Xcode में वो accessible हो रहा था. So this is what these things is happening here. Then the JVM is being set up and the JS is being set up. Browser set हो रहा है. तो ये सारे internal functions है. तो it sets up the browsers and whole lot of things internal. Wasm के लिए browser set हो रहा है. Now there is these things called a source set. Source set are different kinds of sources. For example, Android के लिए एक Android source set हो गया, common के लिए common source set हो गया, test and JVM के लिए हो गया. ठीक है, तो you can define anything related to that source set here. For example, I have Android main, so I can use configure block, I can use dependencies block, I can use in any sort of a block here, language setting block. तो काफी सारे blocks में set कर सकता हूँ. So whatever the dependencies, let's close this. Whatever the dependencies you want to available throughout all the platforms, जो कि common main है, तो वो डिफाइन करनी होगी कॉमन मेन डॉट डिपेंडेंसी. इसको यहाँ पर ले लेता हूँ ताकि आइडिया आए. ठीक है, वट एवर द डिपेंडेंसीज you want to applicable everywhere, you define it on top of common main dot dependencies. Then again, runtime is required, foundation is required, material library we are using, so it's required. Compose UI, compose resource, tooling preview, view model भी अभी multi platform है तो you can use it, and runtime compose is required. So these are the dependencies that will be exposed to all of the platforms because ये जा रही है compose main में, it's going into common main. Now Android specific dependencies whatever you need, for example UI tooling preview जो आपको चाहिए मतलब in Android we show the tooling preview, right? Something like this. ये जो tooling preview है, तो Android के लिए you can define that things. Plus compose activity का variants भी अपन को चाहिए for Android. Android X dot activity compose. So we will define them inside Android main. Again, Android main is a common implementation of a common main, which will be used by Android app. इस केस में दोनों सेम ही है, but which will be used by the Android app. अभी टेस्टिंग के लिए जो भी डिपेंडेंसीज है डिफाइन इट, जेवीएम के लिए जो भी डिपेंडेंसीज है डिफाइन इट, एंड यू कैन यूज इट, राइट? एंड्रॉइड वाला ब्लॉक है जो यूजुअली एंड्रॉइड में दिखता है, यू सी इन द एंड्रॉइड ब्लॉक, डिफॉल्ट कॉन्फ़िग है, पैकेजिंग हो गया, बिल्ड टाइप्स हो गया, कंपाइलेशंस हो गए, तो ऑल ऑफ यू आर फेमिलियर विद दिस ब्लॉक, ओके? एंड डिबग इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लिए यूआई टूलिंग इज रिक्वायर्ड. Plus compose desktop के लिए भी we had to do some sort of because see in terms of Java desktop applications, if you use a Java Swing or Java FX, तो उसके लिए एप्लीकेशन का मेन क्लास डिफाइन करना होता है. तो you are defining this, the Gradle is defining this main.kt as a main class for the desktop. Okay, desktop में वो चाहिए. Now all of the native platforms use a different file format, right? For example, make use .dmg format. तो make का target format यहाँ पर अपन define कर दिया dmg. Okay, Windows के लिए अपना target format है .msi. Okay, Microsoft installer msi. Linux के लिए target format सेट कर दिया अपन ने Debian, that is dev, coming from the Debian. काफी सारे पैकेज, if you are, let's say if you are distributing the application to Fedora, so you can use the RPM, right? exe you can use it if you want to build an exe file. So that things you can define using a target format. This is your package, this is your package version, that is basically library version. So this is how your Gradle file looks like. Okay, and अपना JVM target है 11. ठीक है, तो ये एक मेन ग्रेडल फाइल हो गई. बाकी तो एंड्रॉइड की भी यहाँ ही अपन ने कॉन्फ़िगरेशन दे दी है. ठीक है, एंड्रॉइड कॉन्फ़िगरेशन इज इंक्लूडेड हियर इटसेल्फ. ओके, तो उसके लिए सेपरेट, देयर इज नो सेपरेट फाइल हियर. एंड ये जो है वो तो प्रोजेक्ट लेवल की फाइल. दिस इज द प्रोजेक्ट लेवल फाइल. So this is the structure of a basic KMP project. Okay. So yeah, again, and this was supposed to be the content of the first day as well. These things, that is, you see why platforms is mentioned, what is this actual, and what is this expect. So all these things we'll cover into the next class, where we'll see the project architecture and all these things. ठीक है, तो आई थिंक आज के लिए दिस इज इनफ. And now I'm open to questions if anyone wants to ask anything for today on related to today's session. Any questions on today's session? Yes, Parvez.
Rajesh, I wanted to know about the iOS library dependencies. Are those included in our build.gradle itself, or we have to handle it separately?
So for the iOS, what you can do two types of the things. So what do I mean is let's say if you have some library that is written into Kotlin but gives you a shared access to iOS, so that things you can define into iOS main dot dependencies. But if it's a very specific to iOS, I mean, it's, let's say it's written into Swift UI or something like this, and it's a native to iOS, so wo you have to define into iOS का जो कोड है वहां पर. That things you can define there. If it's a shared code, so you can define it into iOS main dot dependencies like this. For example, if I want to show you, let's say iOS main, yes. So for example, let's say we are making a we want to use a networking. Okay, we want to use a networking. Now, Ktor is a good networking framework on a multi-platform, right? Ktor is a good thing. So Ktor expose their networking engine to iOS, Android, desktop, web, and everything. So we need this Ktor into the iOS main as well, because iOS main is the place where we will make the network request using the Ktor engine. Okay, so that's why I have, as you can see in this project, I have defined the Ktor का जो iOS client है, that is inside the iOS main dot dependencies. So if it's a multi-platform client and it's targeted for the iOS, you define it here. If it's a something completely specific to iOS, matlab it has nothing to do with a multi-platform, so you can work with this into the iOS folder. You can import it as either Cocoa pod or framework. Cocoa pod तो खैर ठीक है. Now तो now the framework is iOS framework. So you can import it as a framework into that specific iOS project. Okay, make sense or okay, cool. ठीक है. Any more questions from anyone's side on today's class?
I have a one question. Hello.
Yes, Akshay.
Yeah. So I just want to understand that in Android normally we have a flavors and all the things. So in KMP, do we have the flavors?
Sorry.
The flavors, build flavors.
Build flavors like you mean let's say you want to build release build, debug build, that kind of thing.
Yeah, means not like the same, but we have a different flavors, right? The debug build also, if we are creating, just assume we're creating for X project, okay? So just only that particular module will be, generated the code. And if we debug only Y project, then only the Y module code will be generated. So that type I'm asking.
Uh, okay, so you let me try to understand it. You are asking that for let's take an example. Let's say for the iOS, you want to create a module, and from that module, let's say in the iOS main, you may have let's say 10 features. So from this iOS main, you just want to generate, or you want to import only 5 modules and continue with the iOS app. Is this what you are asking?
Yeah, like that. Yes,
Ah, so
means in Android normally we have the flavors. Just I want to understand whether in KMP or CMP do we have the flavor thing or not?
so
Means
flavor.
in Gradle have that, right?
So if you, I'll tell you. So if you see the build variant, we have if we just talk about the Android, we have a debug builds and release build and whatever build you want to do, right? If you want to go into flavors as in the Android, the flavors is what? Flavors is different kinds of a combination of build. Let's say you have a two flavor, free version and paid version. So free version would include some of the features, paid version would include some of the feature. Okay, so this is what we call flavors in Android. Is this the same things you are asking here?
Yeah. So I just want to understand the same thing in Windows or in iOS or in
Uh-huh.
Mac. Do we have that or how means?
That should be possible. I haven't personally tried different flavors for the desktops and all these things, because my I was mainly working on the mobile, so I haven't tried it. But that should things should be doable for include separate things based on your separate requirement. That should be doable.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Cool. Any more questions? I guess Mayur wanted to ask.
No, I think it was just one question, like which MacBook are you using? Like it's handling the load pretty well, so that's why I just wanted to know.
Okay. So it's a Pro, yes, M2 Pro.
Okay, cool.
It's a really nice thing. It handles all of my Android loads, Xcode, and I work in so I run what to say, backends and front ends and iOS and Android, and as of now it's working really good for me.
Yeah, good.
Okay, cool. Any more questions from anyone's side? Okay, no questions. So that means you folks were able to understand and grasp the thing. If you have any suggestions or feedback regarding the sessions, like how it was, you want to share something, let's say you do you if you even if you want to share it into personally, feel free to tell me on the DM, like, okay, this is the things I like, this is the things I really want to improve, and you can do these things better. I mean, you can even tell me, no worries on that part, so you can tell me and I'm fine. तो आप share कर सकते हो इस kind of things भी. So yep, I think that's all for today, and we will meet on what to say, Wednesday. And meanwhile, अगर किसी को कुछ भी पूछना है, बताना है, तो feel free to reach out to me in a DM as well. After the sessions, recordings will be available in the shared location. It's not available into, यहाँ पर आप जाओगे तो you won't be able to find it. I'll tell you, क्योंकि past में ऐसा हुआ है, लोग जाते हैं यहाँ पर share में and they try to find it here. You won't be able to find it. Rather, this will be available into the locations for which you have got the email, right? मैंने group में पहले एक clarify कर दिया था. तो click on that location, तो कुछ minutes में वहां पर available हो जाएगी. ठीक है, cool folks. I think it's all good. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a good night. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Good night.